So to kick things off, SkyDeck is really an entity that's run by UC Berkeley. It's led by Caroline Winnett and is underneath the Dean of the Business School, the Dean of the Engineering School, and the Vice Chancellor of Research at Cal. So it's truly a Berkeley run and a Berkeley led program. The SkyDeck Fund, which is where I work, is the partner investment firm of the SkyDeck Accelerator. This fund is backed by folks like Sequoia Capital, Mayfield Fund, Canvas Ventures, Sierra Ventures, and it's the entity that invests $105,000 into every company that comes to the program. It is two separate, different organizations, but we have a partnership together in order to make sure that all the companies succeed in this program. On a very high level, and I promise we will dive into more details on this, as well as talk through how the program has changed during COVID. SkyDeck is a 6-month long accelerator designed for early stage startups to establish a presence in Silicon Valley. And we'll definitely talk through more of that. It's designed for any University of California affiliated founder, student, alumni, professor, grad student, researcher who wants to come through, as well as for international founders who want to really access and grow in Silicon Valley. But all of our teams share a common characteristic of wanting to raise this true institutional round of funding, this $2 to $5 million round. And SkyDeck really offers this direct access to Silicon Valley through the collective resources that UC Berkeley, this world-renowned institution, has to offer. I always start with, why should startups consider, raising money in Silicon Valley? I think we're a big believer at SkyDeck and the SkyDeck Fund that it's never been easier to start a company anywhere in the world. There's a lot of great governmental support. There's a lot of great angel investments. There's a lot of great industry trends moving in those directions. But what Silicon Valley still has to offer is truly an unparalleled funding ladder. With tens of thousands of angels, hundreds of pre-seed investors, hundreds of seed investors, hundreds of A investors, dozens if not hundreds of B investors, all the way up the capital ladder to IPO. That process is very well defined and it really works in a succinct way. Due to some of those dynamics, right, the supply and demand, as well as just the history here, the success here, investors here typically will take greater risk tolerance than a lot of other regions, as well as offer a lot more favorable deal terms than some other ecosystems. Founders are also immersed, I think, in a very supportive environment. I think it's always fun. You can really walk into, you used to be able to walk into any coffee shop inside of the Bay Area, and there was probably a founder there trying to build a startup. In the Phil's coffees or the blue bottles. And so I think, most people here are working inside of technology. Most people here, know people working inside of startups or big companies. And so there's just a lot of network to share. I think people are very fluid with their networks here, which is really supportive to early stage founders who talk to a lot of people. Why UC Berkeley? I'm a Berkeley alumni. Caroline is a Berkeley alumni. We're a big believer that great founders come from every university. But what Berkeley has to offer that I think is so great for startups is really in a few categories. First and foremost, I think the alumni network we have at Berkeley rocks. It's large, about 500,000 folks, and it is the biggest feeder school of talent into Silicon Valley because of the size of this university. It's hard to find a Series A or let alone a Series B company in Silicon Valley that doesn't have a Berkeley alumni there that we can ask for help from. So SkyDeck really taps into these alumni and that Berkeley has to offer. Berkeley itself is quite a leader in terms of academic research and has really shaped the development of Silicon Valley for the past 60 years since it's really gotten its name. Steve Wozniak, one of the two Apple founders, is a Berkeley alumni, and the list really goes on and on. It also has a very large undergraduate and graduate population, along with professors. And a lot of these people are very interested in startups, want to work at startups, want to help startups. And so there's a lot of great talent to access from the undergraduate population, graduate school, as well as the alumni network. And then proximity here, I mean, I don't know how much you all know about the geography of the Bay Area, but maybe 20, 30 years ago, there was a lot of things centered in Palo Alto, in Menlo Park. But over the last 8 years, the Valley's really moved up to San Francisco, where Berkeley is about a 22-minute train ride away. So it's very easy to access, and it's very easy to get folks to come here as well as for our teams to go there. SkyDeck companies truly come in all shapes and sizes. We've backed very early stage ideas along with companies that are even 4 or 5 years old. But I would say the typical SkyDeck company is about 6 months to 3 years old. They have some kind of customer traction. On the low side, if they're a very technical company, maybe this is unpaid pilots, letters of intents, paid pilots. And on the high side, we've had companies come to us with anywhere from $3K a month, $20K a month, even $80K a month in recurring revenue. And so it really has quite a large range of different traction points. Companies that are earlier stage, I think really, in terms of traction, really benefit from validating the product market fit. Companies that already have revenue really benefit from the go-to-market expertise we can provide, as well as the large access to the customer base. Nearly all the companies have some kind of innovative and interesting technology built. Maybe it's not a full-fledged MVP or product, but there's probably some kind of demo core technology that shows us that the team can build something and really validates that this technology is real. And from a funding standpoint, we are first check investors in some of our companies. But many of our I would say probably we're first check investors in about 25% of our companies. 50% of our companies have raised somewhere between 100K and 500K. And then another 25% of our companies have raised anywhere from 500K, even up to $2 million before they come through the program. So they really come to us at these kind of different shapes and sizes, but they're all looking for that institutional seed round, this $2 to $5 million round of funding that they know they need to raise to build this business. What's happening during the SkyDeck program? There's a lot of great accelerators out there in the world. There's Y Combinator, there's Techstars, there's Alchemist, I'm just startups, and many, many more. What we really focus on, and I think what we've really done is establish probably, a little biased here, but probably the most hands-on program that's available for startups at the stages that we look at. It's 6 months long, and so it's really designed, not to have companies, come in for a couple of weeks, learn a few things, and then raise money. But we really look holistically at the business. So in the first 6 weeks, the teams are trained. They get to through various kind of sometimes basic, sometimes advanced techniques in entrepreneurship. They meet a bunch of advisors and then pick 3 equity-free advisors to really be their key advisors for this program. And you can see on our website, I'll show you a link soon that outlines who these advisors are. And then we help them really establish some KPIs, some milestones, some goals that they really need to hit in order to fundraise. And that's kind of all within that first 4, maybe 6 weeks, depending on what's going on overall with the program. The next 4 months, right? This is why our program takes some time. We're really focused on helping our companies succeed in a variety of ways, right? We want to help our companies, not just find new customers, not just improve their stories, but grow their teams, develop technology, and really figure out what narrative they need to build and what they need to, and how they need to back that up in order to raise that institutional seed round. A lot of the companies we're working with are very technical, so you can't really do much. You can't really pivot in 1 or 2 weeks. There's a little bit of a longer sales cycle, and it takes time to iterate and change. In the last 4 weeks, That's when we really focused on fundraising. And we run two major processes around helping our teams raise money. There is a large, amazing demo day. I think it's probably one of the largest in Silicon Valley that occurs at the end of the program, where our teams pitch to anywhere between 500 and 700 investors, which I think many of our teams meet angels and sometimes lead investors from. But also, we figured out that before demo day, we can engage the top 150 seed firms in the Valley, and we get them to meet with our teams for one-on-one pitches pre-demo day. And these are the lead investors who can really cut these institutional checks. And we have a matchmaking process for our teams to meet with these investors. So typically our teams are walking away with anywhere between 20 and 50, even 60 investor leads after our program. Kind of summarize a little bit, why Berkeley SkyDeck, why think about this? On top of obviously a lot of that great fundraising support that we do, I really think it's access to talent, the ability to access Haas MBAs, grad students, postdocs who might want to join the startups. We're even seeing some of the SkyDeck advisors, and I highly encourage you all to look at the SkyDeck advisors, join some teams full time. There is just amazing mentorship from these advisors. And if there's someone that, if you need access to somebody for advice, for mentorship, and we don't currently have them in our network, we will go and find that person for you to chat with. And finally, we have some really strong customer development channels. SkyDeck already has strong relationships with a lot of great corporations and businesses who want to run pilots with companies. But also, the Berkeley Alumni Network is very responsive to SkyDeck when it reaches out to engage with a startup. And we've seen our teams close hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue through these SkyDeck connections in the past. So let's say there's a company that's trying to sell to VPs of marketing or marketing teams. We'll go out and try to find the Berkeley alumni who are leaders of marketing and make those connections on behalf of our teams. We have a lot of great success stories here. Crisp came through our program back in 2018. And we really helped them hire a COO, raise money, and really build that right go-to-market strategy. In the US, some of our more well-known names are folks like Lime Scooters, who went through the Hot Desk program in 2017. Symbi Robotics, who's been backed by folks like Andreessen Horowitz and Eclipse. Most major investors in the Valley have backed a SkyDeck company at some point. But we've had great success stories from Europe, from Latin America, from Asia, and from really all around the world, as well as many from the University of California system. The SkyDeck Fund, where I work, is the partner investment firm of the program. The SkyDeck Fund itself invests $105,000 for 5% of every company that comes through the program. And there is a $5K program fee. So it's really kind of a net $100K for that 5%. We make sure our companies build a Delaware C Corp in order for the fund to invest. And typically we're investing $105K through an investment instrument called a SAFE. It's very standard in Silicon Valley at a $2.1 million valuation cap. That being said, it's very common for our companies to have previously raised money at a 4, a 6, an 8, even a $10 million valuation cap before the program. And in these instances, there's still a net, $100K for 5% that's going to occur, but we are able to really transition that and take some common shares, invest some money through a SAFE, which is slightly more founder friendly and doesn't trigger certain most favored nation clauses and makes previous investors happy. If this is a concern that you have, I highly recommend for you to apply, get to know us. And it's something that we can talk through during that interview process and have our teams have you chat with some of our alumni teams who've gone through the same decision-making process. I think we've covered a lot of the basics, but just to really clarify, people always ask, do I need a UC Berkeley affiliation in order to join the program? No, any international company or any University of California affiliated company can apply to SkyDeck. And then during the program, we're going to work to give you those Berkeley ties, those advisors, those mentors, those employees, maybe those co-founders to help your startup succeed. SkyDeck itself does help companies transition um, to the United States by giving some advice and as well as connecting the folks with the right legal partners, sharing details on housing. We've helped dozens and dozens of companies do this over the past 3 years. And so we do have an expertise in this transition. And I think we'll talk at the end a little bit about how we've transitioned to a COVID world and a quarantined world. Stage of startups, we did cover this earlier, but typically it's companies that are 6 to 36 months old, sometimes younger, sometimes older, but many of our companies fit in that range. That typically have some kind of customer validation, probably have raised money, but it's not required. If you feel like you're too early a stage, please feel free to apply anyway. We definitely back founders that we really like. If you think you're maybe a little too late stage, I think I would also encourage you to apply. Many of our companies come in thinking they're a little late stage and figure out after meeting us that they were really right in our sweet spot. And then industry-wise, we take teams from all shapes and sizes. We've had egg tech companies from Russia. We've had satellite companies from Argentina, biotech companies from Berkeley. So I think we do everything. I think we do have a little bit of a specialty around kind of things that are harder tech. About 30 to 50% of any given cohort can potentially be PhD led. But that means 50 to 70% of any given cohort is potentially not PhD led. So we do like more technical teams. But please apply regardless, and we can best filter you throughout our interview process.